Hey, what's up everybody? Hey, MP here. I'm going to shoot this video about the Display Inherit module that I've been working on for a little bit now. This is a super confusing module that I'm still trying to wrap my head around how we can best utilize this. But I think that this is going to be, the best shot that we have at implementing design components effectively in Drupal. I'm going to go over the basic concept of display inherit, and then I have an example. We're going to take a design component from a static prototype and try to get that into Drupal and see where display inherit shines in that scenario. All right, so let's get going. So first off, the display inherit module does two things. Let me switch over here. There's on slides.com, I have, I'll post this as a link, but I gave a talk at Drupal Camp Princeton, I believe, about the new front-end workflow. And in it, I referenced the display inherit module, and it has I have a little example of how the basic idea of it. So what this does is it allows you to set up inherited view modes. So you can set up basically parents of view modes, for example. So if we had, let's say as an example, we had a view mode that's called image. And then we also had another view mode that's called image left. And then we had another view mode that's called image left lightboxed. So we could have all of these view modes where an editor adds an image to the Drupal website. And after they add an image content type to the Drupal website, they could choose between a few preset view modes that would render them in a bunch of different ways. So same content, just rendered it through a bunch of different ways. Design component, if you will. The best way to implement this in Drupal is if the user chooses image left. If somehow image left could inherit all of its field settings and all of the custom variable alterations that we do in pre-process functions, if it could inherit that from its parent, the image view mode, that would be pretty cool. That would allow us to make slight alterations to the lightboxed view mode, but in most cases it's going to inherit a lot of the same field settings from image. So display inherit attempts to solve that problem. So what it does is whenever you set up new view modes, you can set up inheritance by putting 2 underscores in between your view mode names. So in this example, we have a base view mode called image, and then we had a variation on that base view mode called image -- left. There's 2 dashes in between image and left, so we know that anytime image -- left gets rendered, it's going to attempt to inherit the settings from its parent image. Same way with image _ left _ lightbox, it will attempt to inherit settings from image _ left. Then it will ultimately fall back on just the image base component. So here's an example. What the display inherit module allows us to do. It allows us to define this in our pre-process function. So it allows us to set up a pre-process function that's named something like this. And within that pre-process function, we can alter variables. And anytime we alter those variables will be changed for not only image _ left here, but it will also change it for image _ left _ lightboxed. So that inheritance structure, basically. It's, if you're familiar with naming theme functions with 2 underscores, so that it will ultimately fall back on the base, so the base theme function. For instance, links. You'll see that a lot. You'll see theme links, theme underscore underscore, or theme links underscore underscore menu block, something like that. It's basically saying, hey, if you wanted to override this theme theme function just for the menu block, if you want to override those theme links just for the menu block, you can. But if I don't see that theme function override, I'm going to ultimately fall back on just the plain old links theme. So it's hopefully I explained that okay. It's kind of a weird concept, but hopefully whenever we dive into the example, it'll be better explained. So that's the first thing that it does. The second thing that it does is it allows inheritance for the custom display settings. So this is pretty cool. So typically in Drupal for view modes, Drupal thinks of view modes as no inheritance structure at all. So if you set up, like if I set up view modes for image left, image right, image light boxed, image boxed, those are all individual view modes that don't inherit settings from anything else. It's just its own standalone view mode. The only thing that it will fall back to is if I don't check image left here, traditionally in Drupal, it would fall back to inheriting the display settings from the full content, whatever the default display is. But with inherit display, it will, if I don't check image left will then inherit the custom display settings from image. So that's pretty cool. So with this, new methodology, if we're using view modes as variations to our design components, it allows us to, without completely pulling our hair out, manage custom display settings for a grouping of a design component. All right. So how does the inheritance system work? So as you remember, it goes by 2 underscores. So those 2 underscores basically symbolize that there's a parent structure involved there. There's a parent-child relationship. The parent is whatever's on the left of the 2 underscores, and the child is whatever is on the right of the 2 underscores. This works really easily with the Drupal theme functions, so I think it will be pretty natural. It also it works great with the BEM style syntax. The one thing with BEM that I like is the modifier. Here, if these are all the same, here's my card design component here. And it has a couple different variations. Here's the base, here's the inverted variation, here's the billboard variation, and then within billboard variation, there's 2 variations on that, top and bottom, basically just doing whatever the top position of the background image is. So here's the image middle, top, bottom. In BEM, we signify variations by two dashes. Now, obviously, people do it, way different. It's just sort of a suggestion to the methodology, but I really like this methodology here. 2 dashes to me makes total sense for defining a variation. So the cool thing with that is that translates very nicely to Drupal. All we have to do is change the 2 dashes to 2 underscores so that it fits the Drupal's machine name standard. So let's try to implement this in Drupal, and we'll see how Display Inherit does. Now, before we start, we'll note that I am working on the dev release, which I suggest. I'm gonna try to push another release, 1.1 release. In the dev, I have a custom stack specifically for view modes. So let's take a look at the Display Inherit module real quick. We're not going to take a deep dive into the code or anything. But let's actually take a look at the API. Okay, so how do we use this module? So the first thing to use this module, we have to do something a little weird, and I'm not saying that this is how it's going to be in the end, but for right now, this is the best way that I have come up with to instantiate this. Basically, what we do is, if we want to use Display Inherit, we have to instantiate this function. We have to call this function from a preprocess function in our theme. I'm not going to get into the full details of why this is necessary. I'm going to try to document that. It's really confusing, but this is the best place. This is the best way that I've found to make everything work nice and happy like. So the first thing, so that's how you instantiate the module. That's how you use Display Inherit within your theme. What you can also do is create your own inheritance stacks. So this is a pretty important concept with Display Inherit, is that it works on these inheritance stacks. And by default, we basically take the view mode and explode the array at the double underscores and create an inheritance stack from that. You can also create an inheritance stack for just the view mode if you want to, which I put in here with the development module. So not only will you get inheritance stacks with the content type, but now you can get inheritance stacks from just the view modes, which is pretty crucial for this whole concept of design components. All right, so enough boring stuff. Let's set this up. So what we're going to do is, from the displayinherit.api.php file, I'm going to take this example. Actually, let's just take that whole thing, and we're going to go in to our theme. Our theme's template.php, and we're going to paste that in there. And we are going to rename this to, what is this, Sandbox to Aurora. I'm using Aurora as a base theme, but that shouldn't matter. Okay, so what's this doing? So this is, I'm creating an inheritance instance. Let me, all right. So basically, I'm creating a little inheritance stack right now. And this will make more sense once we start putting in some view modes. So let's take a look at what this does out of the box. So let's go over to our website. And let's first publish this. All right. And let's take a look at the code here. So I have theme debug turned on so we can see our template suggestions. So we can see the normal default Drupal template suggestions. So node, node -- article, node -- 2. But then we also see this node dash dash inherit. So whenever you see that, that means that that's the display inherit module in action. So the first thing that it's giving us a suggestion for is the view mode. So node dash dash inherit dash dash full. The next thing that it does, it gives us one for the content type, which is an article. And then finally, the last thing that it does is gives us one for article dash dash full, which is the content type plus the view mode. So it gives you a more fine-grained template suggestion that you can override. So like I said, for the design components, for right now, I think it's, at least for me, it's best to think of each variation as a view mode. It's just that view modes play really nicely in Drupal. We have access to them all over the place. A lot of the default modules, like token, I'm a huge fan of tokens, and a lot of the token modules, once you can allow you to select a node and then say, how do you want to render this node? And what they're showing you is a list of view modes. So in Drupal, the view modes, I think, are really close to the concept of a design component. They're separate. We don't want them tied to the node itself or the entity itself that we've created. We want this to be almost like a wrapper on top of the entities that we're creating. So we're basically saying, okay, here's your entity. How do you want this entity rendered? That's the idea. That's the main idea of design components. So they're sort of agnostic to whatever the entity is. It doesn't matter. So view modes are the closest thing that we have in Drupal right now. All right. So now what we need to do is we need to set up all of these variations as view modes. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I've set up my view modes here. Basically what I did is I found the easiest way is to just create a tiny module. I called it, sandbox view modes. And the only thing in there is just one hook. It's hook view modes entity, or I'm sorry, hook entity info alter. And within that, you can easily add your view modes here, which I've done. So I've set one up for each variation of the design component. And whenever I do that, let's go back into here. And I'm using a really nice module called view mode tabs, which is very handy when debugging this. So what view mode tabs allows you to do is if you go into content types and we'll go into article, you now have this little view mode tab here. And where are my view modes? Give me my view modes. Aha, there we go. So what that allows you to do is you can turn on the view modes associated to, or that this content type has access to. And whenever you do that, you'll have this little view mode tabs next to your node on your local menu. And you can see, whenever you add a node, you can see how that node is going to be rendered in all those different view modes. It's pretty slick. I like it. Okay, so now let's go in here and take a look at what the inheritance stack looks like. All right, now we're getting somewhere. So now look at this inheritance stack. Very lovely. So the first thing we hit, so again, we have Drupal's default inheritance theme suggestions, but then we also have one for card billboard, and one for card billboard bottom. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. If we wanted to go deeper and make custom templates or custom overrides for specific content types, we can do that also. We have we have article dash card, article dash card dash billboard, article dash card dash billboard dash bottom. So we can really drill in at any point that we need to and override variables and override templates. Okay, perfect. But also this is the golden zone right here for design components. Right here we have it just giving a suggestion just for view modes. That's super important because at the end of the day, what we want is to have these view modes being accessible to a bunch of different entities. So we're going to set them up as such. All right, so let's work on transferring this card over to our Drupal system. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to set up this template here. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go into, here is my, here's my theme. I'm going to go into templates and I'm going to create a new folder called components. And within that folder, I'm going to create a folder for cards. And within card, I am going to set this up. Cool. So let's see if it worked. We'll flush our cache. And cool, it's working. So as you can see, it's already inheriting from our template, which is exactly what we want. The next thing that we can do is let's go into our prototype and let's get the markup for the card component. And we'll paste it in here. And whenever we do that, voila, everything works. Yay! So this is typical in Drupal. Okay, we haven't really gained anything yet. We've gained the fact that we can override a view mode, but people have been doing, themers have been doing that for a while now, right? We're pretty accustomed to writing custom hook suggestions, theme suggestions. But what Drupal doesn't allow you to do is it doesn't allow you to do this. So what I can do now is I can take this pre-process function and I can say node __ inherit __ card. And what I can do is I can remove that. Okay, so that pre-process function is available in all of these. Pretty cool. What about this? Let's just do billboard. Aha, now we're overriding the pre-process function for just billboard. Pretty cool. So it allows us to use that system of inheritance. Whereas before Drupal had no idea that this view mode should be inheriting from this view mode, or vice versa, sorry. But now we have that inheritance structure. So that's super, super cool. We're going to need that for what we're about to do next. Okay, so like I said, we want these designed, for these to truly be design components, they need to be content type agnostic, right? So whenever we're setting up these variables in our templates, we need them to be agnostic. We need them to not reference any fields. We just need them to sort of be these arbitrary variables. Then what we're going to do is we're going to override those variables in preprocess functions depending on what fields we have available to us. So the first thing that we're going to do is let's go in here and we're going to start replacing stuff with just dummy variables. So this is card content. We go here and we're going to say PHP for each card links as link. We're going to print that out, print render that link right there. All right. So again, these don't exist yet. We are going to set them up in our preprocess function. So we're going to come into card here, and if we refresh, as you can see, we have nothing. And we are going to set these variables up first and foremost. So we had card content, and we had card links. And that's going to be an empty array. All right. So now let's set up card content. So knowing that this design component can be used by anybody, the first thing we're going to do is try to come up with some suggestions. So we're going to think of what is probably the most common field to be rendered in this card content area. And the one off the top of my head is the body, right? So what we're going to say is if we have the body field available to us, we are going to set card to content equal to that. And whenever we do, it's an array. So that means we have to go back here and render that array. Nice. So we are printing that out nicely. And now let's do our custom links. So links are always a bit goofy when you're really trying to dig in there. I hate using the theme links function. It's just nutty. So let's say we wanted to add that custom read more here. How would that be? Well, it would probably be if we're not on the home page, or if our current page is not equal to the node URL or something like that, then we are going to set up card links. We're going to put a new link in there. And that is going to be a link with read more and the path to that, which is the node URL. And oh, what else is there? I think it's options. So an array of options. One of those options is attributes, which is an array of attributes, and one of those is class with an array, wholly arrays. And we need to add our custom class here because we need to replicate this this HTML. We need to put that class on there. So we'll put that in there. All right. And let's refresh. And we get nothing. Card links. I'm going to add to that. Current path. Ah. All right. Of course, typo. So there we go. Yay, our little read more link. All right. So now we have that little read more link, and there we go. The one thing that's kind of bad is, let's say, for example, that we don't have a read more link, and we have this footer here. So that doesn't really look good. So what we can do is set up an if statement. If card footer is true, then we can print it. And what we'll do is, in our preprocess function, we'll set that variable up, footer, but we're going to set it to false for now. And in here, we're going to say, well, if the links are present, then we're going to set that to true. Bam, bam. Cool. So there we go. We've successfully moved our design component, our card design component over. now the next step are the variations, right? So the first thing that we can do is we can take the node TPL. Has a really good thing right here. I really like the way that they do this. So they print out the, let's go with that, yes. So they print out the ID, which hopefully you're not using, but then they also print out a nice array of classes. So I'm first going to put card in there just in case, just to set up our design component. And then what I'm going to do, since it's printing out all these classes, what I'm going to do is in my preprocess function, I'm going to put the classes array, I'm going to put the view mode in there. View mode, it's called. View mode. Let's see. Is it showing up? Card. Oh, it's printing out underscores, which we don't want. We need to convert those back. String, replace, search for underscore, replace it with a dash, and it's going to be view mode. Aha, there we go. So now we successfully have the inverted design component showing up. So if we take a look at that, it's because we have card, and then we also have card in dash dash inverted, which is exactly what we want. So now let's take a look at fixing these billboards. So the billboard variation is a bit different. It's not taking the body. It's actually just like rendering a header, right? So the markup is going to be different. So if we take a look at what that markup looks like, it's not crazy different, but it's slightly different. So it has an image in there, and then it's actually rendering out a title and an H tag. So the first thing that we're going to do is find out what template we need to override. So we're going to look in our template suggestions. So right now we're doing node dash dash inherit dash dash card. We need to get that billboard dash dash billboard. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to go over to here, and we're going to duplicate this one, and we're just going to rename it. All right, so now that we've renamed it, we are going to see where the markup is different. So one, it has a little image there. Nice. So that is obviously going to be a variable. So print, we're going to just set up a arbitrary variable there. Cool. And now we have to take care of this one. So instead of rendering content, we are going to render a title. Actually, I think it should be like this. Not even render that content area, because it doesn't exist. And we're going to again render the card title. let's refresh. And if we refresh, we can see, oh, darn it. Edit in the wrong template. Close that one so we don't mess up. There we go. And let's put card dash dash billboard. All right, there we go. So now if we can see here, excuse me, the all of the card underscore underscore billboard view modes are being overridden by that new template, which is exactly what we want. So if we look at this one, it's being overridden by card billboard. Cool. Our inheritance stack is working. So now let's pop into here and let's do another pre-process function. And we'll name this one Billboard. And what we'll do with Billboard is Billboard needs two new things. They need card image, and it also needs card title. So card title is pretty easy. The default is just going to be the node title. That one's pretty simple. The image, however, is going to be a little tricky. So basically what we want to do is say, let's see if we have, if within our content render array, do we have a field image? If we have a field image, we're going to use that. Card image equals variables content field image and let's do this, just the first thing, so we don't get that wrapper or anything around it. All right, so we got our title, which is good. Now let's see where our image got us. Okay, it's just an empty array. Ah, I should render that. Yay! It works. So there you go. So there's our design component. So a couple things to note. And this is another thing that Display Inherit gives you the ability to do. So we have this image here. And what if we need to resize it? We want to render it through some type of image resizing functionality. The cool thing with Display Inherit is that we now can go into Manage Display, under Article, Manage Display, Card, click on Card, and we have Image. So let's say that we don't want to put it in the card style, image style. I created one before I started. Let's say I wanted to change it to the thumbnail, 100 by 100. So I'm just on the card view mode. I'm just editing the image style for the card view mode. But whenever I save it, there we go. Whenever I save it, it changed it for all of those design components. Pretty cool, huh? Now we just made it look horrible. So let's say, for instance, we started here and we wanted to make that look good. We could easily go back into Manage Display and say, actually, let's render this at the original image size. Bam, these are all three back to normal. So this is where Display Inherit shines. It allows you to, like, without stabbing your eyes out, manage a bunch of these variations. Cool. So we just put in a lot of hard work, a lot of, you know, what some would say unnecessary work putting these in, right? A lot of people would say, I don't have to go through all that hassle setting up my content types. And you're totally right. The advantage with doing it this way is, like we said, this is content type agnostic. So what would happen if we create a new content type? Let's say an announcement. You are talking to the world's worst speller here. Did I get that right? Unbelievable. So we're setting up an announcement, and we also want it to use all of those card view modes. So let's add some new fields. I want to add an announcement image. Actually, for now, let's do this. Let's say we want to reuse that image field that we have available to us. And we also have like an announcement, like a tagline or something. Something weird. All right, and what if we link somewhere? We're gonna make this really radically different than the article. So whenever we create an announcement, it doesn't even link back to the node. It does something crazy where we could link to some other website or something. Yeah. So let's create an announcement. Display Inherit module. We'll link to the Display Inherit page. This is totally crazy what this module does. And our tagline is going to be long live design components. The website. Something crazy. All right, so right off the bat, this looks horrible. Let's check out the view modes and see how we fare. Let's go down to card. And look, it's sort of working. It's kind of working. So we're not out of the woods yet, but let's see how quickly we can make this work. Brand new content type. I want to reuse that component. So let's first go to announcements and display settings. And I'm going to shut off everything but card, because I want everything to inherit from this one card view mode. So I'm going to go to card, and I'm going to see, okay, so nothing's turned on. So let's turn on link, we'll turn on tagline, turn on image, and we'll turn on body. And we'll save that. And for image, we'll again go with the card image. With body, let's do, we should keep it trimmed up. 200. Title is link, that's fine. Tagline, default, that's fine. So let's see what happens whenever we save this. All right, so we're getting there. The body, the label, we don't want a label. Let's get rid of that right now. All right, so we are so close to being almost there. Huh. This is so cool. So, hey, check out the Display Inherit module. It's using the title. It's very cool. Let's actually, I think we messed this up. I think we need to wrap this in to make it match this, to put it in here. Yeah, that's a little bit better. not crazy good, but so what we don't want is this read more, right? Excuse me. We don't want the read more because it's not really going to any page. We want to link out. And whenever it's in here, we want to put the tagline in there. So let's do those two things. So what we know that we can do here is, because of our inheritance stack, we've at first kept it very generic with the view modes. Now we need to get specific. Now we need to say, whenever you're on the announcement, I want you to do something different, something totally off the wall. So what we're going to do is override this card. And so what we're looking for is the pattern. So inherit -- announcement -- card. So let's copy this one. And instead of inherit -- card, we want it to say inherit -- announcement -- card. And we'll test that out. Yay. Okay, so we're successfully overriding it for the announcement content type. And what we're going to do is we're first going to say that I'm going to take a look in here as a developer. I'm going to take a look in here and say, okay, what do I have access to? Okay, well, I can override the card title. Let's override that. And we're going to say if variables content field tagline is set, is set. Then I'm going to provide the card title with that, with this field. If not, it's just going to fall back on whatever the default is. We have design components, and let's actually do the first instance of that array so it gets rid of all the wrapping, all the wrapper around it. Yay! Okay, so we've just changed the logic based on the content type. It's still using the exact same design component, it's just we're changing the logic. And we're doing that easily with Display Inherit. Let's also change this read more. We're going to say, first of all, we should really never render this. Whatever the default is, we're not going to do. What is it? Card links. We're going to set that to an empty array. Don't want it to be a read more. Let's what we can do is let's take a look at the, let's chroma out how this link field works. So within, what we do is we go into content, and we go into field tagline. And we take a look around. Let's see, or not tagline, I'm sorry. Field link. Take a look around and see how this thing works. So some of these fields do things a little differently. All right, well, I'll tell you what, let's see what happens if we just render this element out. If we say is set variables field link, then we're going to set the card links equal to that. Or at least we're going to add it onto the array. Let's see what that gives us. All right, so we're sort of there. Nice. The only problem is that we don't have the same markup, right? Take a look at this markup. Oh God, it's got a bunch of different stuff in there. Ugh. So let's see how we can get rid of that. So at minimum, what we need to do is we need to put, let's see what's on here. We need to put the card link class on there. So let's do that. Where did everything go? There we go. So put the card link on there. And I think this render array is a little weird. I think it's an element. I think you add it here. Let's try that. So we'll add classes, class, add on to that class with links, card links. Let's try that. And doesn't look like it. Class array. Oh, gotta love it. Card links. Okay, so put it on there and card link. Come on. Card underscore underscore link. BEM syntax. Come on, Mike. Get it together. Bam. There we go. So there you have it. That we now have two content types inheriting the same thing. Perfect. So let's see this. Let's see this in action here. Let's see what benefits this gives you. If you're excited about design components, then you probably already know what the benefits are already. But let's just, for argument's sake, take a look at these two things. So these are the two different content types rendering a design component the exact same. That is so cool. Oh, that makes me so happy. How about if we go to redesign these? So let's go into card here and we'll say, you know what, the billboard, it should really have some sort of min height because right now it looks kind of bizarre. So min height should be, oh, it should be 30 ems or something like that. 20 ems. Okay, so everything broke. I wonder what broke here. Footer, content, links. Okay, well, I guess instead of implementing flex blocks, let's say that the content area so card content should have a min height. 20 ems. Oh, way too big. Let's say 10. All right, cool. I like that. So there you have it. We just had a change, and we were easily able to implement that change to our design component. This design component will update here. Is it? Actually, let's just make all cards. $15 ems. Ooh, that's a little much. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'll take that. So we've just updated our style guide here. And we've also, that change is now carried over. So let's make I'm going to cut all that out. Okay, so now here's the scenario. We have just heard word from the higher ups that our design components are really not working here. We really need to make a drastic change. We need to change the colors. We need to change the colors right now. It's a pretty big change. All right, so we've just gotten word from the higher ups that change is coming to this design component. We need to make it quick as a front end developer. That's usually the bane of our existence, right? That's just what we die a little inside every time we hear just slight changes, right? Because what happens is that we made this lovely design component that was signed off on and everyone loved it at the time, and now here we go, we implemented it in Drupal and a change is coming down the line and our heart stops. But we've adopted this new methodology. We're really embracing the design component. This design component is just one template file, or in this case 2 template files, because some of the markup was a little different. But nonetheless, a minimal amount of template files exist here. So if we want to make a change, let's say that we need to change the color here. So pink is just not working at all. Let's say that for the inverted secondary color, that needs to be a lightened version of whatever the primary color is. It's just too overboard for what they want to go with. So there we go. Ipso facto, that needs to change to white. Boo hoo hoo. I think we can also change the card color to white. So there we go. Instead of primary color, let's say it's just green. Oh yeah, that looks so good. So the boss loves green. We make the change there, and we also, in our text shadow here, we say green and green. Big fan of green. That looks better. The links aren't really working, but that's okay. So we made a change here. Let's go back on our website and see how this fares. Yay! Everything looks good. We've just implemented a critical design change that is propagated over our design components that are being utilized by many different content types. So I know this was a long video. I just didn't know how else to explain how the methodology of display inherit and why it might be useful. I'm 100% open to suggestions. I'm not even completely convinced that view modes are the way to go. I think maybe that there's some other entity out there, like I don't know. I need to get this out and see if this is at all useful to people. But whenever I was trying to rack my brain, trying to think of how we were going to manage design components in Drupal, this was the final straw here. So let me know what you think. I don't know if anyone reached the end of this, but hopefully you did. But hit me up on Twitter. Hey MP, check you later.